Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. Today was the day the big meeting between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took place at the White House. And folks, right up front, here is the big takeaway. Bibi agreed to President Trump's proposed deal to end the war against Hamas terrorists in Gaza. And I start with a big question. For all of our very educated viewers, our watchmen and women on the wall who watch this channel on a daily basis, will Hamas accept? Will Hamas play ball here? Folks, there's been no indication whatsoever over the past nearly 2 years now since the October 7th massacre that Hamas is willing to lay down its arms, surrender, admit defeat, and hand the hostages over and perhaps go into exile someplace into some other Muslim nation and to leave Gaza completely. But are we approaching end game now? We had a unified front, obviously, at the White House between the president and the prime minister. And the other big takeaway, I think, there's a few, and we're going to dig into them real quick as we await Hamas's response. But I think the other big takeaway along those lines is that during their meeting and before, and you probably saw the press conference, they didn't take questions, but they both came out and made a statement, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. During their meeting behind the scenes at the White House, Bibi spoke to the emir of Qatar, to the ruler of Qatar, and he apologized to the Qatari emir for, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago now, the Israeli airstrike in Doha, the capital of Qatar, which targeted the Hamas leadership there. Now, it appears to have been an unsuccessful strike, but a daring and a bold and I believe a necessary strike in Doha. But Qatar was outraged and Qatari leaders were outraged and the Gulf states were outraged. And Bibi apologized. But, folks, I can tell you two things. Number one, in the days after, actually the very next day after the strike in Qatar, I was in D.C. at the Israeli embassy. I spoke to Bibi's top advisor, Ron Dermer, the Strategic Affairs Minister for Israel, also the Israeli ambassador to the United States, Yakil Leiter, and both said, look, if Qatar harbors terrorists, this is what happens. Qatar has been harboring and supporting Hamas terrorists for years, and this was very similar, in my view, to the United States targeting Osama bin Laden on Pakistani soil back in 2011. Qatar obviously didn't see it that way, and the Arab Gulf states didn't either, and there was concerns that the Abraham Accords could collapse. So that brings me to the second point. I don't think Bibi regrets the strike for 1 second. The reason he apologized was that now the thought is, and the expectation is from Israel and certainly the United States, that Qatar will also play ball now, and they will force, the Qataris will, and strong-arm Hamas into accepting President Trump's deal and seeing the release of the hostages. I think that's why Bibi swallowed hard, bit his tongue, and just through gritted teeth, I'm sure, offered this apology with President Trump saying, look, if we just do this, if it just satisfies Qatar, then Qatar will basically get the Hamas leaders in the corner. Remember, again, they live in Doha at the pleasure of the emir of Qatar, and they live in luxury villas and five-star hotels, living like kings, murderers, butchers in Doha. So the expectation now, I think, is that Qatar will say to Hamas, you better accept this deal or else. That's the only reason Bibi did what he did today. You may not like it, but did he have another choice? Could he have said, no, I'm not going to speak to the Qatari emir and we're going to prolong this thing? Look, it would have caused friction with the Trump administration, I think. And by the way, don't believe the hype. The relationship has never been closer. I talked to players on both sides of that relationship. It's rock solid. I always laugh when these big turning point, pivotal moments come up in the U.S.-Israel relationship between Bibi and President Trump. I read the mainstream media accounts of tension behind the scenes, and then I laugh because it always turns out beautifully. Think of the 12-day war back in June, the mutual destruction, Israel and the U.S. working together to destroy Iran's nuclear weapons facilities after we were told for at least 2 months that, man, there's tension. They're not getting along. Bibi and Trump don't see eye to eye. Well, guess what? They did, and they still do. But the Qatari apology, I think, was part of the bigger vision Trump has. Look, Basically, in layman's terms, let's just shut the Qataris up, get them off our backs about the strike you guys carried out a few weeks ago. And if we do that, then we can wrap this thing up. They'll pressure Hamas into accepting the deal. Hostages will be released, etc. The key word I've used, that's the expectation. That doesn't mean it's the reality. Because as I said at the top, there's been no indication that Hamas is willing to lay down its arms, and they'll fight till the bitter end. And on one hand, you kind of saying, we've been hitting on this on the newscast over the past few weeks, why should they surrender when Europe clearly has their backs? Look, Europe unilaterally declared a Palestinian state, gift-wrapped, rewarded Hamas for the October 7th massacre. At least that's how Hamas sees it. Hamas has been thanking European and Western leaders. Canada and Australia are among that motley crew as well, who all at the UN General Assembly last week agreed to recognize a Palestinian state. That has emboldened Hamas, and it has encouraged Hamas to dig in further. So will Hamas lay down its arms, agree to this, agree to leave Gaza, go into exile? Big question. More on the big takeaways from today in a minute, but real quick, if you have not subscribed and you like what you're hearing, current events, breaking news, chiefly from Israel and the Middle East, but we go around the world, depending on the news cycle, including right here news, of course, from the United States. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted for such a time as this. We are fast approaching 1.1 million subscribers, hard to believe, and we have God to thank and you, our subscribers, our loyal viewers. So thank you very much. And we're bringing you a message of unapologetic biblical truth. Imagine that. Another big takeaway today. Okay, obviously the Qatari apology angle. Obviously, does Hamas accept? And President Trump said, look, if Hamas does not accept, Israel has my full blessing to completely destroy Hamas, which Israel is in the process of doing right now. I mean, they're laying siege to Gaza City, which is really the last Hamas holdout, other than, again, Doha, where the Hamas external leadership resides in splendor and luxury. But President Trump said, look, you've got the green light, destroy them. Hamas has a golden opportunity here to maybe even escape with their lives and go into exile into some other Arab country. And President Trump said, look, if they don't accept, that's over. It's game over. This is their one last chance. And the thought is that within 72 hours, if Hamas agrees, all Israeli hostages living, there are probably less than 20 alive now, and the remains of over 20 more will be released. And Bibi said, look, it accomplishes all between that and Hamas laying down its arms and essentially surrendering. Bibi said that would accomplish all of my war aims. What are those war aims? Let's rattle them off. He said it today, and I'm going to quote him from the press conference. It achieves, he says, President Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza, quote, achieves our war aims and can end the fighting. Bibi said, quote, here's the 5 aims. Number 1, it brings back to Israel all of our hostages. Number 2, it dismantles Hamas's military capabilities. Number 3, it ends Hamas's political rule in Gaza. Number 4, it ensures that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. Looks like it was four actually. Ensures that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. Bibi said the first step would be a modest withdrawal, his words, of Israeli forces. They'll back up just a little bit from Gaza City so that the hostages can be released within 72 hours. The next step would be the establishment of an international body that is charged with disarming Hamas and demilitarizing Gaza. And Bibi said, if that international body succeeds, we will have, quote, permanently ended the war. Bibi said any Israeli military withdrawals would be linked to the progress of demilitarization in Gaza. Israel will retain security responsibility, including a security perimeter in Gaza for the foreseeable future. Gaza would not be run by Hamas, key point here, or by the Palestinian Authority of Mahmoud Abbas. That was a big sticking point. And he gave President Trump a shout out during his talk and said, Mr. President, I'm glad you recognize the Palestinian Authority also cannot run Gaza. They're not worthy of it. They also support terror. So it won't be Hamas. It won't be the PA. It looks like what it will be is some kind of international force. the Board of Peace, President Trump announced. They're forming an international Board of Peace that he will chair, and they will oversee the reconstruction, the governing of Gaza, at least in the short term. I'm sure the Saudis, the UAE will be involved, Israel, of course. Let's see if Europe has some involvement. But the thought is some kind of international body, again, with President Trump chairing it, that will bring Gaza in from their self-created barbaric Stone Age of Islamic jihadism and demonic madness that has gripped that strip of land for decades now under Hamas rule. So that, in a nutshell, is the plan. There's things I like about it. There's things I'm skeptical about. But what I like the most is neither Hamas nor the terror-supporting Palestinian Authority would run Gaza. Hamas completely disarmed, completely out of any kind of power in Gaza. I mean, that's a given, right? You can't accept any deal that doesn't do that. And of course, all of the hostages being released, living and dead, and your heart breaks for the families, obviously. It's been close to 2 years that their loved ones have been tortured in tunnels underneath Gaza. So is it a perfect plan? No, it's not. And I don't think you could get any kind of perfect plan in this case. But the prime minister agreed to it. I tend to give he and Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt across the board, in that they've made basically all the right moves in the region during their partnership together. Number one, during President Trump's first term, and secondly, during the first several months of the second term. I mean, destroying Iran's nuclear weapons program alone forges this historic partnership and alliance. I've compared them to two Churchills, not Churchill and Roosevelt. This is two Churchills working together amid a sea of Neville Chamberlains in 2025. I've also compared them to Reagan and Thatcher during the 1980s. They brought down the Soviet empire. Trump and Bibi have brought down, or close to bringing down, the Iranian terror empire, the Iranian Ring of Fire. So I tend to give these two strong, impactful leaders the benefit of the doubt. And again, like I said, there's some things in the plan where I'm saying, wait and see. A lot of it's wait and see. And a lot of that wait and see is in regard to Hamas. What does Hamas do? The ball is in the court of a demonic modern-day Nazi death cult. So do you understand my skepticism a little bit and my hesitation and my wait-and-see attitude? Let's see. Again, I think that apology today, and no one likes it, and Bibi had to swallow hard, I'm sure. But the apology was not for targeting Hamas, by the way. The apology was that a Qatari citizen was killed in that Israeli airstrike about 3 weeks ago. A security guard, apparently. So Bibi did not apologize for going after Hamas and the Hamas leadership. And people can say what they want. Israel did the right thing there and sent a clear message that terrorists are safe nowhere. If you kill Jews, you kill Israelis, you're not safe anyplace. But I do think that apology could go a long way towards Qatar saying to Hamas, and look, Qatar has all the leverage, right? They're hosting Hamas. They could kick them out into oblivion, whatever they want. And they should have done it years ago. They should never have hosted them in the first place. But Qatar can now say to Hamas, hey, boys, it's time. Agree or else. At least, again, that's the expectation and the hope. We shall see. This is the ultimate case of wait and see. One thing is very clear. We live in prophetic times. Very glad you're here with us to follow it all shoulder to shoulder as we walk through for such a time as this. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. More updates to come. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.